Welcome. This is Brandon Price with ATS. We're Adaptive Training Services, and we build models for training purposes. And I've been asked a lot lately how we do what we do. So with no further ado, we're going to show you how a model's made. This is the area from which the models are designed. We have multiple screens so that we can adapt things according to the photos that we're working with. And for today's video, we're going to show you what it has taken to make this model thus far. This model is not complete, but it is of a transfer pump segment and a sound barrier wall. And I would just like to show you what goes into it. The transfer pump and the piping is done on an SLA printer, the Form 2, which is pulled from a resin. And we'll start off with the first step. Okay, basically we're going to start off with a photograph or something that gives us reference as to what it is that we're actually going to build. In this case, we're going to use a booster pump that we found a picture of, and we'll go ahead and start designing in CAD what we're seeing here on this booster pump. In this particular CAD program, we're going to start off with some basic shapes that are going to make the parts that we want to make. So we're going to grab a piece that roughly looks like the size of the base of this thing, and we're going to stretch it out the way we want it to and size it up. Then we're going to pull another basic shape out of it, and we're going to put it in here and size it accordingly so that it's the right size to make the base frame for the booster pump. Now, the tricky part is CAD work can take a lot of time. It's very time consuming to get the parts to look the way that you want them to. And in this case, we're starting with the photo that looks like this, and we want to get the detail right in there of these parts. So you have to build all of these parts within CAD so that you can see what exactly it is and how to build what you're going after. And this particular piece, took several hours to draw up on CAD for the first time. And once we have it into CAD, then we go ahead and we move it into a slicer program so we can decide what we want to do with it, whether we want to print it on an FDM printer or print it on SLA. Because this model is to be built in really high detail, I've gone ahead and put it into a slicer that's going to print on the Formlabs Form 2 SLA printer. It's going to give me the best detail, and you'll be able to get in and see all the little nooks and crannies and bolts that are associated with the pipe. So once we get it into this program, we go ahead and slice into it and build the supports we need to so that the printer can print it. Now, as you can see here, we've gone ahead and added the supports to the model, so this way structurally it can support itself during the print. If those support structures weren't there, then you're going to have issues trying to get the model to build in the detail that it does. So in order to go from this to this requires a few steps. We start off in our CAD program. We move to our slicer and build the supports. From the slicer program, we go ahead and send it on over to the SLA printer. And as you can see, there is a laser that is in UV light that is actually causing the cure in slices, segments of it. This particular print's going to take 7 hours and 41 minutes. Once the print comes out of the printer, it needs to be cured. It's still going to be soft. But in order to do that properly, we need to first clean it and make sure that all of the uncured resin is off of it. So we go ahead and we put it in this machine here, and we put it down in, and that's going to bathe it in alcohol until all the residual resin is gone from it. Once the part comes out, we need to put it in the cure so that this way the part can actually have a UV cure on it, which will cause it to cure all the way. Once all that resin, extra resin, is gone off of there, you can do the cure. If you try to do it before then, you're not going to end up with a detail because there's going to be some liquid resin still attached to the part. Once the cure is complete, a pair of snips, tweezers, and a hobby knife become your best friend because you have to remove all the supports. Once the supports are all removed, you'll have a nice clean part with which you can start adding your detail on. In this instance, we added brass handles, brass piping, and wiring. All of our decals are laser printed onto water slide paper so that this way we can start adding the detail of the stickers. And they're not any thicker than they need to be in order to fit on the part and look proper. Next in this model, we have the wall sound barrier assembly and the supports. The gray supports are basically steel I-beams, which hold the sound barriers in place. So again, those need to be designed in CAD, where you start from the ground up same way. You find your basic shapes in this particular program, and then you manipulate them until you get the shapes that you want. Once you have those back from the CAD program, then you go straight into the slicer, and again, begin slicing it up so that this way the printer, in this instance, is going to be printing FDM, which is going to be laying filament down layers at a time. Once that part goes through the slice, then it goes on to the FDM printer, which begins laying them down a slice at a time. In this instance, it's on an Ultimaker S5. This print for the 4 sound panels will take 14 hours and 45 minutes. So as you can see, we can go from complex shapes and making models to very simplified shapes and making some other things that are needed to be posted within the models. Take into consideration though, anything that's going to be printed on these printers and turned into a model has to be first designed in CAD, then it has to go into a slicer program, and then it goes on the printer. Though the CAD drawings and the printers do take a lot of time, the real work begins when we start assembling the models into their final product. In this case, we added a base with gravel and some bushes to make it look like it's at least on the type of field that it would be laid in. In other cases, we have to sand and paint and then add the decals in order to get the proper shapes. Nothing comes quickly in this industry, and everything takes time if you want the quality, especially the smaller details. Well, I hope you enjoyed what you've seen, and this is just a small look into how we build our models and a couple of the techniques that we use. Please feel free to post if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you. Have a good day.